My parents co-signed a huge loan for my golden child brother's failed startup, forcing me to pay IT back or they'd lose their home. They said IT was my duty, so I paid IT off, but they had no idea about the clause I added to the final agreement. The day my parents finally called me for help, I was in the middle of debugging code for $1 million project. Funny how they only remembered my number when their golden child's mistakes caught up with them. I'm Vivienne, and I've spent 31 years being the responsible one, the reliable one, the boring one, the one who wasn't Colin. Honey, we need to talk. Mum's voice trembled through the phone. It's about the house. I knew exactly what this was about. Colin's latest revolutionary startup had crashed and burned, taking their home equity loan with it. I'd warned them 6 months ago when they'd mortgaged their house to fund his brilliant idea for, I kid you not, an AI-powered toaster that could predict your breakfast preferences. How bad is it? I asked, though I already had a figure in mind. 100,000. Dad chimed in from what must have been speakerphone. The bank? They're starting foreclosure proceedings. I leaned back in my office chair, staring at the Seattle skyline through my window. And Colin? He's trying his best, sweetie. Mom jumped to his defense. These things happen in business. You know how innovative minds work. No, Mom. How is Colin planning to fix this? Silence. Of course, I closed my laptop and grabbed my keys. I'll be there in 30 minutes. The drive to their suburban home felt like traveling back in time. Past the elementary school where Colin's mediocre art always made the bulletin board, while my perfect math scores went unmentioned. Past the high school where they attended every one of his football games, but missed my valedictorian speech because he had a big game that day. They were waiting on the porch when I pulled up. Mum was wringing her hands. Dad looked defeated. And there, sprawled on the porch swing like he didn't have a care in the world, was my brother, Colin. Sis? He bounded up with that trademark grin. You're not gonna believe it, but I've got another idea that'll make this all worth it. Stop talking. I brushed past him into the house, setting my bag on the kitchen counter. Show me the paperwork. Mum scrambled to get the foreclosure notice while Dad made coffee. Nobody would drink. Colin followed us in, his girlfriend Destiny trailing behind him, phone permanently attached to her hand. It's really not as bad as they're making it sound, Colin said. The algorithm was solid. We just needed more time. The algorithm told people when they wanted toast, I cut in. It wasn't exactly curing cancer. You never understood the vision. Destiny piped up, finally looking up from her phone. Colin's ideas are ahead of their time. I bit back a response as Mum spread the papers on the counter. The numbers were exactly what I'd expected, worse actually with the late fees. I could cover it, but that would mean liquidating most of my investments. We wouldn't ask if we had any other option, Dad said quietly. We know how hard you've worked for your money. For the first time, they noticed my success. Funny how that worked. Remember when I wanted to go to MIT? I asked, scanning the documents. You said we couldn't afford it, that I should be practical and go to state school. Vivian, that was different, Mom started. Was it? Because you remortgaged your house for Colin's toast robot, but you couldn't help me with tuition. I looked up at them. I paid my own way, every semester, every book, every meal. You were always so capable, Mom said, like it was a compliment. You didn't need our help. No, I agreed. I didn't. And I don't think you need it now either. I stood up, gathering my things. Their faces fell in unison. Wait, Dad called out as I reached the door. Please. We'll lose everything. I turned back, seeing them all there. Mom close to tears, Dad looking small, Colin with that hint of entitlement still in his eyes, Destiny recording everything for who knows what reason. I'll help, I said finally. But we're doing this my way. I'll have my lawyer draw up the paperwork tomorrow. The relief on their faces was instant. They didn't even ask about the terms. They never did, with Colin's ventures. Why start now? As I drove home, I called my friend Cassandra. Remember that conversation we had about karma and contract law? I need a favor. The family finally called? She asked. They did. And they're about to learn that responsibility comes with a price tag. I smiled as I merged onto the highway. A very specific price tag. Cassandra's office always smelled like leather and lavender she'd made partner last year, and her corner office reflected it. all gleaming mahogany and floor-to-ceiling windows. As I settled into one of her visitor chairs, she pulled out a legal pad. "So you're finally doing it," she said, uncapping her pen. "The houseplay we talked about." They handed it to me on a silver platter. I pulled out the foreclosure notice. They need $100,000 to save their house. I have it. But I want more than just their gratitude this time. "You want the house?" Cassandra didn't phrase it as a question. "I want control. They've spent 30 years making decisions that benefit Colin at everyone else's expense. Time to change the game." She started writing. "We'll need to structure this carefully. Make it ironclad, but not obviously predatory. Something they'll sign without thinking twice." "They never think twice when it comes to Colin," I said. "Why start now?" For the next hour, we crafted the agreement. It was beautiful in its simplicity. I'd pay off the loan, but the modified lien would add me to the title. One signature, and I'd own 1/3 of their home. Another clause buried in the middle would trigger full transfer of ownership once the debt was cleared. "They won't read this carefully," Cassandra warned. "Are you sure you want to go through with it?" My phone buzzed. A text from Colin. "Thanks for helping the parents out, sis. BTW got another idea to run by you later. This one's guaranteed money." I showed Cassandra the message. She nodded and kept writing. The next morning, I met my parents at their bank. Mum was wearing her Sunday best like she always did for important occasions. Dad had actually ironed his shirt. They both looked relieved to see me. "Where's Colin?" I asked, noting his absence. "Oh, he had an important meeting with some investors," Mum said quickly, "for his new project." Of course he did. I set my briefcase on the loan officer's desk. "Shall we begin?" The loan officer, a tired-looking woman named Janet, spread out the documents. "I've reviewed the modified agreement your lawyer sent over. Everything appears to be in order." I watched my parents' faces as Janet explained the terms. They nodded along, barely listening, their eyes fixed on the number at the bottom of the page, the number that would save their home. "So Vivian will be added to the title?" Dad asked, but his tone suggested he didn't really care about the answer. "Yes." As a CO owner, Janet confirmed. "And there are some additional terms regarding future ownership transfer based on the loan satisfaction." Mom was already reaching for the pen. "That's fine." "That's all fine. Your family after all." I almost laughed at that. "Family. Right. Just sign here, here, and initial here." Janet pointed to the marked spots. Their signatures were quick, eager. They didn't even skim the pages. Just like they never questioned Colin's business plans or bothered to read those investment prospectuses. I signed last, my hands steady. With each stroke of the pen, I felt lighter. "Congratulations," Janet said, stamping the final page. "The transfer will process today. The foreclosure proceedings will be halted immediately." Mom hugged me, tears in her eyes. "Thank you, honey. We'll pay you back somehow, I promise." "No need," I said, tucking my copy of the documents into my briefcase. "Consider it an investment in my future." Dad squeezed my shoulder. "We're lucky to have such a responsible daughter." As we walked out of the bank, Mom was already on the phone with Colin, telling him the good news. I heard his voice through the speaker, loud and celebratory, probably already planning his next venture. "Dinner tonight?" Mom suggested, hanging up. "To celebrate? Colin and Destiny can join us." "Sorry, I have plans," I said, checking my watch. "Work dinner. You know how it is." They didn't, actually. They'd never really asked about my work, my success, my life. Back in my car, I took a moment to breathe. Then I called Cassandra. "It's done," I said. "How do you feel?" I looked back at the bank, where my parents were still standing, probably planning how to tell their friends they'd avoided foreclosure. They'd spin it into another story about resilience, about family coming together. They had no idea what was coming. "I feel like I just bought the most expensive revenge in history," I said. "And it was worth every penny." "You wanted me to save the house?" I muttered to myself as I started the engine. "It's mine now." 6 months passed in a blur of overtime and side projects. Every extra dollar went toward paying down that loan while my parents acted like everything was back to normal. Tonight was another family dinner I couldn't avoid. Mom's birthday. I arrived late, coming straight from my consulting gig. The driveway was already full with Colin's new Tesla, because apparently, bankruptcy was no reason to drive a modest car. "There's my responsible girl," Mom called out as I entered. She was wearing a new dress, probably another gift from Colin. He always bought expensive presents with other people's money. The dining room was a snapshot of everything wrong with our family. Mom and Dad beaming at Colin while he gestured dramatically, describing his latest venture. Destiny recording everything for her social media, adding filters to make the modest dining room look more aesthetic. And me, still in my work clothes, clutching a practical gift card I'd actually paid for myself. "Vivian, you won't believe what your brother's working on now," Dad said, practically glowing. "Tell her, son." Colin leaned back, running a hand through his expertly styled hair. "It's a revolutionary dating app that uses zodiac signs and cryptocurrency." "That sounds fascinating," I cut in, setting down my bag. "Mom, happy birthday." "Oh, thank you, sweetie." She took the envelope without opening it. But let Colin finish. This could be the next big thing. I caught Destiny smirking behind her phone. She'd been dating Colin for 3 months and had already mastered the family dynamic. "As I was saying," Colin continued, "we're calling it Starcoin. Users match based on astrological compatibility, and they can only communicate by sending each other custom cryptocurrency tokens. How are you funding this one?" I asked, serving myself some pasta. The table got quiet. Too quiet. "Actually," Mum said, brightening, "we were hoping to discuss that. You've been so generous with helping us out." "No!" The word came out sharp enough to make Dad flinch. "But you haven't even heard the projections," Colin protested. "Destiny's already got influencers lined up to promote it. We're talking millions in potential revenue, like the toast robot." I stabbed at my pasta. "Or the smart socks? Or the cryptocurrency for pets?" "Those were learning experiences," Mom defended him. "Every entrepreneur has failures before their big break. And who paid for those learning experiences?" I set down my fork. While Colin was learning, I was working 60-hour weeks, canceling vacations, turning down promotions that required travel, all to pay off his mess. "Don't be jealous just because your brother dreams bigger than a cubicle," Destiny chimed in, finally lowering her phone. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. "A cubicle?" I laughed. "I'm a senior software architect. I lead teams that build actual functioning technology, not astrology-based Ponzi schemes." "Vivian," Mom scolded, "it's my birthday. Can't we just have a nice dinner?" "Sure, Mom. Let's have a nice dinner. Let's talk about how you're planning to fund Colin's next failure." Dad cleared his throat. "Well, we thought maybe with the house situation stable now." "The house situation isn't stable. I'm still paying off the loan. The loan I took out to save your house because of his last brilliant idea. And we're so grateful," Mom said quickly. "You know, you'll probably make that money back in no time. You're so good with finances, unlike your brother. He's more of a big picture person." The table erupted in agreeing chuckles. Even Destiny laughed, probably not realizing she was dating a big picture person who couldn't pay his own rent. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "I need to go. I have an early meeting tomorrow." "But we haven't had cake," Mum protested. "And Colin was going to show us his presentation. I'm sure it's fascinating," I said, grabbing my bag. "Send me the pitch deck. I'll add it to my collection." As I reached the door, Colin called out, "Hey sis, think about the investment opportunity. Family discount." I turned back one last time. They were all there, bathed in dining room light, looking like a perfect family photo. Mum in her new dress, Dad with his proud smile, Colin holding court, Destiny documenting it all. "You know what the funny thing is?" I said. "None of you have ever asked me what I do with my cubicle job, not once. You've never asked about my projects, my promotions, my actual success. Because it's not exciting enough. It's not big picture enough." "Honey," Mum started. "I'll send this month's loan payment on Friday," I said, and closed the door behind me. In my car, I pulled up my banking app, another $5,000 transferred to the loan account, another step closer to owning their house outright. They thought I was paying off their debt. They had no idea I was buying their future. The email from my bank arrived on a Tuesday morning. "Loan payment confirmation. Final balance 0.0s. I forwarded it to Cassandra with just 2 words. "It's time." Her response came minutes later. Paperwork filed. Ownership transfer will process by end of day. I should have felt something more. Relief, maybe? Or guilt. Instead, I felt nothing but a calm certainty as I drove to my parents' house. My house now, technically, for what I knew would be an interesting conversation. I found them in the kitchen with Colin and Destiny. They were huddled around a laptop, probably reviewing another doomed business plan. Mom saw me first. "Vivian, we were just about to call you. Colin's got the pitch deck ready for Starcoin and, actually," I interrupted, setting my briefcase on the counter, "we need to talk about the house." "Oh, did you make another payment?" Dad asked. "You're so diligent with those." I made the final payment. I kept my voice neutral. "The loan is paid off." Mum clapped her hands together. "That's wonderful. Now we can focus on Colin's new venture. We were thinking of taking out a small business loan." "You can't," I said. Colin looked up from his laptop. "What do you mean, they can't?" "They can't take out a loan against the house," I explained, pulling out the documents. "Because they don't own it anymore." "I do." The kitchen went silent. Even Destiny stopped typing on her phone. "What are you talking about?" Mom laughed nervously. "Of course, we own the house." I laid out the paperwork on the counter. "Remember that agreement you signed at the bank? The one you didn't read? It included a transfer of ownership clause that activated when the loan was paid in full." Dad grabbed the papers, his hands shaking. This can't be legal." "It's completely legal," I said. "You signed it. All of you did. Check the signatures." Colin stood up so fast his chair fell backward. "You tricked them. This is fraud." "No, it's contract law. Something you might want to study before your next startup failure. Vivian." Mom's voice was trembling. "We're your family. You can't do this to us." "Family?" I laughed. "Was it family when you remortgaged your retirement to fund Colin's pet cryptocurrency? Was it family when you missed my college graduation for his football game? Was it family when you spent my college fund on his first failed business?" "That's different," Mom protested. He needed consequences," I cut in. "And so did you." Destiny was filming everything now, probably already planning the viral sympathy post. "This is so toxic," she muttered. "Like literally evil." "The house is mine," I continued, ignoring her. "Legally and completely. You can stay as tenants if you want. I'll draw up a lease, market rate rent." "You can't be serious," Dad said, still staring at the papers. "We're your parents. And I'm your daughter. The one you never needed to worry about. The responsible one. The boring one." I picked up my briefcase. Turns out I learned something from Colin after all, how to execute a hostile takeover. Colin lunged forward, but Dad caught his arm. "You ruined everything," he shouted. "All my investors were counting on this house as collateral." "More investors you lied to?" I asked. "Add them to the list. I'm sure Destiny can make a great TikTok about it." Mom was crying now. "Please, sweetie. We can work something out. We're still family." "Family doesn't exploit family," I said. "But you never learned that lesson, did you? You just kept enabling him, kept sacrificing everything for his dreams." "Well, now you've sacrificed your house too." "I'll fight this," Colin threatened. "I'll get lawyers." "Please do." I smiled. "I'm sure they'd love to review your financial history. All those investors you defrauded might be interested too." I headed for the door, then turned back one last time. "Oh, and Colin, your Zodiac cryptocurrency idea, it already exists. It failed last year. But you'd know that if you did any actual research." The last thing I saw as I left was Dad sinking into a chair, the papers crumpling in his hands, while Mum tried to comfort a raging Colin. Destiny was already typing furiously on her phone, probably crafting the perfect victimhood narrative for her followers. In my car I called Cassandra. "How did it go?" she asked. "About as expected. Tears, threats, guilt trips, the usual." "And how do you feel?" I looked back at the house, my house now, and watched Colin storm out to his Tesla, Destiny trailing behind him with her phone still recording. "I feel like I just closed the most expensive therapy session in history," I said. "And it was worth every penny." The fallout was nuclear. Within hours, Destiny had posted a heavily edited version of our confrontation, painting me as the evil sister who stole her poor family's home. The comments were exactly what you'd expect. So toxic. Family is forever. How could she do this to her own parents? I was at work when Mom's first wave of flying monkeys hit. My phone buzzed with messages from aunts, cousins, and family friends I hadn't heard from in years. Your mother is heartbroken. Read Aunt Sarah's text. How could you be so cruel? I muted my phone and focused on my code review until Nathaniel, my team lead, tapped on my desk. Your brother's in the lobby, he said quietly. Security called up. He's making quite a scene. I pulled up the lobby security feed on my monitor. Sure enough, there was Colin, red-faced and gesturing wildly, while Destiny filmed everything. Security was keeping him from the elevators. Want me to call the police? Nathaniel asked. No need. I stood up, straightening my blazer. I'll handle it. The elevator ride down was surprisingly peaceful. I used those 30 seconds to center myself, to remember every missed opportunity, every dismissed achievement, every time they chose him over me. The lobby was silent when I stepped out, except for Colin's voice echoing off the marble walls. Where is she? I know she's here. You can't hide behind security, Vivian. I walked straight toward him. I'm not hiding, Colin. I'm working. You know, that thing some of us do? He spun around, Destiny's camera following his movement. You think you're so smart, don't you? Tricking our parents, stealing their house. I paid for that house, I said calmly. Every penny of it. While you were launching failed startups, I was working overtime to clean up your mess. They were going to help fund Star Coin. We had investors lined up. No. You had more people to scam lined up. How many times are you going to do this, Colin? How many times are Mom and Dad going to have to bail you out? At least they love me, he shouted. They've always loved me more, and you can't stand it. The lobby went dead quiet. Even Destiny lowered her phone slightly. You're right, I said, my voice steady. They do love you more. They always have. But love doesn't pay mortgages, Colin. Love doesn't protect retirement accounts. Love doesn't excuse fraud. I'm calling the lawyers, he threatened. They'll prove you tricked them. Go ahead. Call them. Show them your financial records. Explain how you convinced our parents to mortgage their retirement for your failed ventures. Tell them about the investors you misled. I'm sure they'll be fascinated. Security was moving closer, but I held up a hand to stop them. You're just jealous, he spat. Jealous that I have vision, that I take risks while you hide in your safe little corporate job. I laughed then. Actually laughed. My safe little job? I make 7 figures, Colin. I lead development teams across 3 continents. But you wouldn't know that because none of you ever asked. You were too busy celebrating your latest scheme to notice I'd already succeeded. Liar. But I saw the doubt in his eyes. Security, I called out. Please escort my brother out, and if he returns, call the police. This isn't over, he shouted as they led him toward the door. Mom and Dad will never forgive you. They don't have to, I replied. They just have to pay rent. As the doors closed behind them, I noticed Nathaniel standing nearby. He'd come down at some point during the confrontation. You okay? He asked. Surprisingly, yes. I smoothed my blazer, though I suspect that video will go viral by dinner. You know, he said, walking me back to the elevators. I've known you for 3 years. Never knew you had a brother. That's because I never talked about him. Just like they never talked about me. The elevator doors opened. Funny how family works sometimes. Back at my desk, I had 17 missed calls from Mom and a text from Dad. Please, let's talk about this. We can work something out as a family. I opened my email instead and began drafting a formal lease agreement. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, market rate rent for the area. Professional, clean, businesslike, no family discount. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Cassandra. Your brother's girlfriend just posted the lobby video, she said. It's trending. Of course it is. I kept typing. Let me guess, I'm the villain? Actually, she said. The comments are turning. People are starting to ask questions about your brother's businesses, about your parents' choices. The truth has a way of coming out. I finished the lease agreement and hit send. They thought I was their fallback plan, I said. They never saw I became their endgame. The video went viral, but not in the way Destiny planned. Someone dug up Colin's business history. All the failed startups, the angry investors, the pattern of family bailouts. Soon the comments shifted from toxic sister to entitled brother and enabling parents. Mom tried damage control at church that Sunday. I heard about it from Aunt Sarah, who'd switched sides after seeing the full story. She told everyone you manipulated them, Aunt Sarah reported over coffee. But then Mrs. Peterson, you remember her, the accountant, asked about Colin's businesses. It got very quiet, very fast. I stirred my latte. Let me guess. Mom left early? Practically ran out. But not before people started asking about all those loans they've taken out over the years. The truth has a way of snowballing once it starts rolling. By Monday, Destiny's followers were digging up promotional posts for Colin's previous ventures. Tuesday brought screenshots from angry investors. By Wednesday, his LinkedIn profile had mysteriously vanished. I was reviewing quarterly reports when Nathaniel stopped by my desk. "There's someone here to see you," he said. "Says she's from the Chamber of Commerce." In the conference room, I found Margaret Wells, the Chamber's director, waiting with a folder. "Miss Newton?" She smiled. "I've been following your situation with interest." "The viral video, you mean?" "Actually, your career. You've built quite a reputation in tech, but somehow stayed under the radar. Until now." She opened the folder. "We're launching an initiative for young women in STEM. Mentorship, scholarships, business incubation. We need someone to lead it. Someone who understands both success and adversity." I raised an eyebrow. "And my family drama made you think of me?" "Your handling of it did. You turned a personal crisis into a masterclass in consequences and accountability. That's exactly what we need." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Dad. "Your brother's in trouble. Real trouble. Some investors are threatening legal action. Please. We need your help." I muted the notification and turned back to Margaret. "Tell me more about this initiative." We spent an hour discussing plans, possibilities, and funding. By the end, I was intrigued. "There's just one thing," Margaret said, gathering her papers. "We need a physical location. Somewhere accessible, with enough space for workshops and meetings." I thought about my house, my parents' house, with its large basement and convenient location. "I might have something in mind," I said. Later that evening, I was working late when Nathaniel brought me coffee. "You missed quite a show in the parking lot," he said. "Your brother tried to ambush you again. Security caught him trying to let the air out of your tires." I sighed. "Did they call the police this time?" "Didn't have to. Turns out some of his angry investors were following him. They were very interested in having a chat." My phone lit up with a call from Mom. I let it go to voicemail. "You know," Nathaniel said, sitting on the edge of my desk, "I grew up with a golden child sister. Nothing I did was ever good enough compared to her dance recitals. How did you handle it?" "I moved across the country and built my own life. But you," he smiled, "you stayed and built something stronger than their favoritism." My email pinged the Chamber's official proposal. As I read through it, another text from Mum arrived. "People at church are asking questions. How could you do this to our family's reputation?" I closed the message and opened my calendar instead, scheduling a meeting with a contractor to discuss renovating the basement. "They're not going to stop," Nathaniel warned. "Family rarely does." "No," I agreed. "But they'll have to learn new rules." Starting with paying rent on time, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Destiny of all people. "Colin's investors are super mad. Can you maybe help? For family?" I showed Nathaniel the message, and we both laughed. "You know what the funny part is?" I said, turning back to my work. "If they'd just treated me like family to begin with, none of this would have happened." "Their loss," he said, standing to leave. "But the tech community's gain. Those girls in the STEM program are going to learn from the best." After he left, I finally listened to Mum's voicemail. She was crying, talking about family loyalty and forgiveness, and how they'd always supported my little computer jobs. I deleted it and opened the contractor's website. The basement would need new wiring, better lighting, maybe some built-in workstations. A place where young women could build their futures without anyone telling them to dream smaller. My phone lit up one last time. Cassandra sending a link to a local news article. Tech executive's viral family drama sparks discussion about financial abuse and accountability. I smiled and clicked share. The contractor's estimate arrived the same day my parents finally agreed to meet. They chose a coffee shop, neutral ground. Mom looked like she hadn't slept in days, and Dad's hands shook as he stirred his untouched coffee. "We've been thinking," Mom started, her voice carefully measured, "about what you said, about enabling Colin." I waited, sipping my Americano. "Some of his investors came to the house," Dad continued. "They were angry, very angry. Showed us things we didn't know about. Promises he'd made. And?" I set down my cup. "And we realize now that maybe Mom's composure cracked slightly. Maybe we made some mistakes." "Mistakes?" I pulled out my tablet, opening the contractor's plans. "Let's talk about mistakes. You mortgaged your retirement 6 times for Colin's schemes. You missed my graduation for his football game. You told me MIT was too expensive while buying him a car for networking purposes." "We know," Dad said quietly. "We know now. But we can fix this. Just give us back the house before it ruins your soul." I turned my tablet around, showing them the renovation plans. "See this? I'm converting the basement into a tech education center for young women. The Chamber of Commerce is partnering with us. We'll offer mentorship, scholarships, internships." Mom barely glanced at it. "But what about family? What about Colin? What about him?" "His investors are threatening legal action. His girlfriend's influencer career is tanking because she helped him promote fraudulent businesses. He made his choices. We were just trying to do what was best for both of you," Mom insisted. "You were always so capable, so independent." I had to be. The words came out sharper than intended. "You left me no choice. Every time I needed support, you were too busy supporting him. Every achievement, every milestone, it all took second place to Colin's latest scheme." "That's not fair," Dad protested weakly. "No, it wasn't fair. None of it was fair. But here's what's going to happen now." I pulled out a folder. "I'm creating a living trust for the house. It will fund the education center and provide housing assistance for program participants." Mom's face went pale. "But what about inheritance? What about Colin's future?" "Colin's future is whatever he makes of it. Without your money, without my house, without any more safety nets." "You can't do this," Mom whispered. "We're your parents. We always tried to do what was best for Colin," I finished. "Always best for Colin. Well, now I'm doing what's best for dozens of young women who deserve a chance, who deserve better than being told they're too capable to need support." Dad reached for the folder, but I pulled it back. "It's already done," I said. "The trust is established. The contractors start next week. You can stay as tenants if you want. Market rate rent, no family discount. But the house will never be yours again. And it will never be Colin's." "We could fight this," Mom said, but her voice lacked conviction. "We could get lawyers. Like the lawyers currently looking into Colin's business practices? Go ahead. I'm sure they'd love to add parental enablement to their investigation." A notification popped up on my tablet. Cassandra confirming the trust paperwork was filed. I stood up, gathering my things. "You said you were trying to do what was best for us," I said. "Now I'm doing what's best for me, and for every other daughter who's been told she's too capable to need help. Please?" Mom tried one last time. "We're still family." "Yes, we are. And families have rules, boundaries, consequences. You taught Colin none of those things, so I'm teaching them to you instead." I left them there, Mom crying silently into her cold coffee, Dad staring at nothing. Outside, I called Nathaniel. "How'd it go?" he asked. "About as expected. They're still more worried about Colin than anything else, even with the investors breathing down his neck. Even then." I got into my car. "But it doesn't matter anymore. The trust is filed. The contractors are scheduled. It's done. You know what you said about teaching them consequences?" He paused. "You're going to teach those girls something even more valuable, how to stand up for themselves." I started the engine, watching through the coffee shop window as my parents huddled together, probably already planning how to help Colin out of his latest mess. "You said I owed you this family," I muttered, echoing words I'd been holding back for years. "Now you owe me everything with interest." The renovation plan sat on my passenger seat, A blueprint for something better than family obligation, something built on merit, not manipulation, on earned success, not endless enablement. It was time to build something new. The construction noise from the basement filled the house as I reviewed applications for our first cohort of STEM scholars. 20 bright young women, all brilliant, all overlooked, all reminded me of myself at their age. My phone buzzed. A text from Nathaniel. "News about your brother just dropped. Check your email." The headline was exactly what I'd expected. Local tech entrepreneur faces federal investigation for investment fraud. Below it, a familiar face smiled from his LinkedIn profile photo, still believing he was untouchable. The doorbell rang. Mom stood there, looking smaller than I remembered. "The moving truck comes tomorrow," she said without preamble. "We found an apartment across town." "I know. I approved your rental reference." I let her in, watching her take in the changes. The living room was now a reception area with inspirational posters and a sleek sign reading Newton STEM Initiative. "Your father," she hesitated. "He's not doing well. The stress of everything." "You mean the stress of finally facing consequences?" She flinched. "Colin might go to jail." "Yes," I agreed. "He might." A young woman in a hard hat appeared from the basement. "Miss Newton, we need your input on the workstation layout." "I'll be right there." I turned back to Mom. "Was there something specific you needed?" She pulled out an old photo album. "I found this while packing. Thought you might want it." I opened it to find my academic awards, newspaper clippings about my achievements, college acceptance letters, all carefully preserved. "You kept these." "Of course I did." Her voice cracked. "You were my brilliant girl. I thought you didn't need me to say it. You were so capable, so strong. I needed you to show up," I said, closing the album. "Not just keep a scrapbook." The construction manager called up again. "Miss Newton? Keep it," Mom said, pushing the album toward me. "Maybe show it to your students. Show them what's possible." As she turned to leave, she paused. "That article about Colin, will he really go to prison? The evidence is pretty clear. His investors are cooperating with the investigation. And Destiny? Turned state's witness. Apparently, she recorded everything." Mom nodded slowly. "You know what the worst part is? I can't even blame you anymore. We did this. All of it." The front door opened, and Margaret from the Chamber of Commerce walked in with a group of potential donors. "Vivian? Perfect timing. These gentlemen want to see the facility." Mom slipped out as I led the tour, showing them the emerging computer lab, the presentation space, the mentorship offices. Their questions were thoughtful, their checkbooks ready. "This is exactly what the community needs," one donor said, "a place where talent isn't overlooked." After they left, Cassandra arrived with a stack of papers. "Final paperwork on the trust," she said. "Once you sign, it's irrevocable. The house will permanently serve its new purpose." I signed without hesitation. "Your parents' apartment?" she asked. "Signed their lease yesterday. Market rate, no special terms." "And Colin?" "His lawyer called. Wanted to know if I'd testify about family dynamics, paint him as a victim of enabling parents." I smiled. I declined. Nathaniel appeared in the doorway. "Contractors need you again. Something about the wiring specs." Before heading downstairs, I stopped at the new bulletin board. It was empty now, waiting for our first student's achievements to fill it. Next to it hung a single frame, my MIT acceptance letter, finally displayed after all these years. "You know," Nathaniel said, following my gaze, "you could have just sold the house, walked away clean. This isn't about walking away." I touched the frame. "It's about building something better, something that matters." My phone lit up with a final text from Mom. "Moving truck's booked. Your father wants to know if you'll have dinner with us sometime." "Just dinner. No asking for anything?" I showed Nathaniel the message. "Will you go?" he asked. "Maybe. On my terms this time." The construction manager called up again about the wiring, and I headed down to the basement. The space was transforming. Bright, open, full of possibility, everything I'd wished for at their age. I didn't burn bridges, I realized. I invested in better roads. They just chose not to travel them. But these girls would. These brilliant, overlooked, capable girls would build their own paths, their own success stories. And this time, someone would be there to support them. The house wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to every young woman who needed what I never had. A chance to shine without being told she was too bright. That was worth more than any inheritance.